Hi everybody. This tutorial is about SQL, or Structured Query Language, SQL, SQL, whatever you want to call it. This is really the language of database management systems. And this is the focus of the current chapter in your book. We are just going to focus on those select statements for this week. Later in the semester, once we have designed some databases, we'll be able to focus on those SQL statements that allow us to create tables and modify tables and insert records into tables. But for now, let's just focus on tables that already exist and getting data back out, because that is, after all, the whole point in having a database, not just to put data in, but to get it back out. So we're starting with I have a small database here with castles in it. So these are some famous castles in Europe, and each castle in the castle table has a castle ID, a name, the country, the year it was built, approximately, maybe an interesting fact about the castle, a picture, and the annual visitors per year. So we're going to conduct some queries on this table using SQL, Structured Query Language. Let's look at the first problem here. We are told to select all columns for all castles from the castle table. Basically, I want to see everything in the castle table, so we're starting with an easy one. What I like to do is, before I start typing my SQL, I open up Notepad. Now, you don't have to do this, but it really helps because you see a lot of repetition sometimes, or at least partial repetition when you're doing these problems. So I always have Notepad somewhere where I can access it easily. So when you're doing a query in Access, now if you have some experience in Access, you know that there is a query designer in Access. In fact, you go to the Create tab. Oh, you know what? Another thing, let's close our table. Make sure your table is closed when you're doing queries. We're going to the Create tab. We're going to the Query Design. Now, what I don't want you to do, Access has this QBE, the Query by Example grid, where you're dragging and dropping, and it's all very nice. But let's not use that this time. Let's get used to the SQL language, and you can use it in Access behind the scenes here. So I'm just going to close this. We're not going to use any tables. And do you see here, I'm going to SQL View. Now, I've been fooling around with this, so that's why SQL View is readily available here. But if it's not, just pull this view down, and you'll see it in there. So you go straight to SQL View. Or if you don't see it available up here, you can do a right click and you'll see SQL View right away. So here is where we would type in our SQL. Now, like I said, I like to type it in Notepad because then you can kind of save it as you go along. You can only have one statement in here at a time. So that's why Notepad helps to keep those old statements there, because you may want to copy them and use some of them again. So our first problem, select all columns for all castles from the castle table. This is a simple select from statement. So we say select. Now, all columns. What do I want to see? Basically everything. This would be castle ID, name, country, year built. And I could go ahead and type all those fields, but luckily we do have a shortcut. When you want everything, all columns in your results, you can just type the asterisk there. So we're saying select all from castle. Now, you may notice that I typed everything in caps. SQL is not case sensitive, so I did not have to do that, but certain conventions prevail when you're in programming or coding and computing in general, so I am using those conventions. Would it still work if you did a lowercase all the way through? Yes, it would. And then typically we end a SQL statement with a semicolon. So I'm going to copy this and paste it into my window here. Okay, and now we want to run the query. Basically, I'm on my Design tab here. You want this guy, the Run button, and that allows you to run your query. So I'm going to run. And here it is. It's basically all of the columns that I asked for from the castle table. Okay? You want to get back to your query and change it. You can pull this down and go to SQL View. Okay, so in the next video we'll do a few more problems.